waste of time.
Yeah.
I hope now it goes on. There was something must have gone wrong.
I think, yeah, something has been blocking for some time, yeah. Very green everywhere now.
Yeah. This is a very good weather.
Yeah.
It's bloody, this rain and
Rain,
all.
yeah. What do you think of Brexit? You think it's a good thing?
No. I voted for Remain,
Yeah.
and I still believe that Remain is good. Remaining in European Union is beneficiary to United Kingdom.
How does it benefit the United Kingdom?
Our economy will go 9%. Our GDP will drop by 9%. So you and I will be poorer 9% than we are today.
If we don't
If we
join.
get out of it.
But is it confirmed and all, economists agree on this point?
Yes, most of them. Majority of them.
The majorities, they believe, they accept.
It is government figures. Can you see now? This is a previous.
Huh?
Can you see these barriers?
Yeah,
These
yeah,
are
no,
the
the
old
previous ones, yeah. Amazing. I thought these are stronger than that one, but we don't know what that is made of actually. This is iron, isn't it?
Yeah.
But how can the cars pass from one side to the other? Breaking these barriers, or they just jump?
Breaking these barriers.
They break it, yeah? Amazing.
They're weaker than concrete.
Weaker than concrete. Well, I thought iron is stronger, but you see?
Maybe there is other reason.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe there is inside iron as well. Maybe there is something that makes that one stronger than this. You are right. You are right. Yeah. We don't know how they made that one. These grasses, they look like teff, Mr. Lasharie. Teff is just like, can you see these grasses? As they are just like this, they are tiny.
Yep.
What happened on a bike up the river in Valley? Wait for that one.
Travel news for South Yorkshire and North Derbyshire.
Here's Nick.
They look like teff actually. Maybe they are wild teff or real teff. are approaching now. Newcastle, is that right, Mr. Lasharie?
No, not 100 miles away.
Not very far,
No, not
not very near.
very. service station.
Oh, service
It's
station.
called service Washington service station. You will get it. Not here, but next.
I never know there is a town in England called Washington. And I am amazed that Washington, the great Washington.
Actually, the MP for Washington is called Craig. She's also known to me.
Yeah. So on our left side, yeah, Washington. Oh, we are approaching. Is this the beginning?
Yes.
No, I have never heard. So actually Washington has taken the name from here.
That's right.
That means so
This
much.
town is older than the Washington.
That's true. Yeah.
Can you see Washington there on the top? Washington. Can you see?
Yeah, Washington, Berkeley, yeah?
Yeah, but and this
Yeah.
is service station, which is 1 mile away, and you will see service station is called Washington service station.
There are,
Can you see Washington there?
Yeah, Washington again, 190.
Yeah, this Berkeley was where David Wilson used to live.
He was here
Yeah, he used
before
to
he
live
moved to
to place.
Blaydon.
No. This is Blaydon actually. We are in Blaydon country.
Blaydon, right?
Yeah.
Gusset, yeah? So Washington is near to Gusset. Is that right?
Yeah.
We
Blaydon.
can't say.
It comes Washington town. It is a constituency itself. Yeah.
It's one like
Washington
Blaydon.
Service Washington. I meet their people. I tell them come to Washington and we will meet.
They may go to the United States of America. Interesting. Yes, Mr. Lasharie, Melbourne, like in
Australia.
Australia and in America, in the United States, there are so many names which are derived from
Taken from
the
here.
United Kingdom, yeah, from England. Yeah.
Here is your, you see on the right, what is it? What is it?
Oh, the Angel of North. Boy. Oh, we have been
You have now
it.
entered.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
It's just 8 miles away.
Yes, yeah, so nice. Come back here. It's a lovely place. I like it. Oh, Angel of North. We drove up the other side. Is that right? Last time? Newcastle in a distance. Is that right? There are a lot of things that we don't know, you know.
Very lucky. If we were coming here after 6 o'clock, this will be chopped.
Yeah, we could have a problem.
And I want to thank Liz Twist, our MP, who has... Liz is doing a sterling job in Parliament, fighting this awful government and fighting for the people of Blaydon. And long may it continue. Thank you, Liz.
Tables, but to say thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to support our work in Blaydon, and thank you for making it possible to carry on our work in Blaydon and in Westminster as part of the Labour movement. So a big thank you to all of you. Loads of people have contributed, too many to mention again, but I really do appreciate the support. And are you having a good time?
Yes.
It's really important as well to have a good time while we're doing our politics. So thank you for that as well. And there's more fun and jollity to come on. At the moment, we face incredible pressures. I know that people in this constituency having a really hard time, so many of them. Whether it's people facing problems on benefits with universal credit, our schools and education who are really suffering from the lack of real funding that the government is giving them. Whether it's in housing, people struggling to pay the bills, many of them with arrears now because of not only universal credit, but let's not forget as well the bedroom tax, which is still affecting thousands of people in this constituency. So it's really important that we are able to make sure that we can put forward Labour's radical agenda to deliver better public services, to support members of our community, and also to make sure that we have social justice and fairness, and that the people in this great constituency and across the North East can really develop their best potential and have the best lives they can possibly have. And I feel really strongly about that people up here deserve to have those chances. And that's what I'm determined to fight for. And that's why I'm determined as a Labour MP to work with the party to see a Labour government re-elected. And I hope you agree with that.
Sorry.
I'm really pleased that we have some businesses here, because only about a week ago, a number of North East MPs, Mary Linden, the MP for North Tyneside, had a debate on an industrial strategy for the North East, at which we raised, and there are a number of us from across the region, we raised the issues facing the North East and what we need to do and why we need special steps to make sure that the North East doesn't lose out, doesn't lose in productivity, and is able to develop so that we have good jobs and a good environment for our people. And it's clear that the government really isn't addressing the problems that we face here in the North East. And we know, whatever your view of Brexit, we know that actually people in the North East and the North East economy is suffering already, and businesses will probably talk about uncertainty, most of them do, and the pressures that we face, but also the pressures from the loss of that European funding and loss of access to markets, because we are in the North East still the region that's a net exporter. So it's really important, these are really important issues for us, and issues that we're going to keep on raising as North East MPs, and I know that the Labour Party is going to keep on raising as well, to make sure that we can do the best for people that we can. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker tonight, Emily Thornberry, the Right Honourable Emily Thornberry, I should say. Emily is the Member of Parliament for Islington South and Finsbury, and she was elected on the 5th of May 2005. She's the Shadow Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs, and she's held that role since 2016. And she's a lawyer, a barrister, I believe, Emily, and has a history of working on human rights issues. So she's been a robust and thorough opponent to her opposition to government ministers, first Boris Johnson, and then to Boris Johnson. I've seen Emily stand up to Boris Johnson in her town, have a few jokes at his expense, I think, that went down very well, not just in the House, on our side, and now against Jeremy Hunt. And I know that Emily will continue to speak up for those international issues that really affect us and people really care about, and she'll do it in a way that takes no prisoners and actually has a good go. And we know that whenever she's substituted for Jeremy Corbyn for PMQs, and long may she continue to do so. So without further ado, Emily, can I welcome you to Blaydon?
So, how does this mic work? How close do you need to go? Is that enough? Can you all hear me? Has it got this weird echo if I stand here? Is it all right? It's fine, okay. So friends, comrades, wonderful Liz, It's such a pleasure to be here in Blaydon. Thank you so much for inviting me. I want to say this actually at the outset about this. In this year when we celebrate 100 years of women being on the ballot, at long last being on a ballot paper, I've been thinking quite a lot about this because I was asked to write an article about a woman. Her name was Leah Manning. And Leah Manning was one of my predecessors in Islington South. In 1931, she was elected, and then again as part of the Attlee government after the war. And so she had the honour of voting for the creation of the NHS. She voted for Homes for Heroes. She helped to establish the modern welfare state. And she would walk through the division lobbies with her comrades, singing the red flag as she did so. The other thing that I really liked about Leah Manning was this. She said that women politicians fall into two groups. There's the first group who try to lift up their fellow women, and there's another group who see them as competition and who try to keep other women down. And I can tell you this about Liz. There is one thing absolutely sure about her. She is one of those women who supports other women. And thank you very much, Liz. Supports other women and stands up for Blaydon and fights for social justice for people throughout our great country. And that's why we're all here to support her tonight and to thank her for everything that she's done and everything that she continues to do. So thank you again. I know that some of you are surprised to see me, all right? I know after all the rumours that Jeremy's office was going to send me to Siberia rather than to Blaydon. But you know what, comrades, I took a sneaky look at what it's like in Siberia at the moment, and the weather is really good. It's like bright sunshine, it's 25 degrees centigrade, and I saw some photos. It's got golden sand and blue seas and hundreds of people lounging around drinking cocktails. I mean, honestly, it looks rather nice. It looks like a kind of 1830 version of a gulag, and maybe I'd be happy to go. But I have to say, I would do definitely anything, frankly, these days to get out of Westminster at the moment. Because, as Liz will tell you, it's hardly any fun there at the moment. My youngest boy is at university up in Scotland, and when I make the long journey up to see him from London, he quite often says, "Mum, would you rather I'd stayed somewhere closer to Westminster?" To which I say, "No, Patrick, it's an absolute joy to be able to get as far away as possible. I can't tell you." And so that's why it's such a pleasure to be here and to be out of Westminster tonight. I have to say, there's only one thing worse, frankly, than watching the current shambles of this Tory government, and that's watching their pathetic leadership speeches, isn't it? This bunch of clowns who want to take over. The first round of voting, and we're down from 10 candidates to about 6 now. And it's like Britain's Got Talent, but without any talent. And who did we lose yesterday? Andrea Leadsom and Esther McFadden. 2 women who are too nasty even for the nasty party. And Mark Harper, a man who's so obscure that his wife had to look him up when she found out that he was running. We got Matt Hancock, he dropped out today. He said, muttering something about being a candidate of the future. I have to tell you this, the Tories keep messing up on Brexit in this way. They have no future, particularly if they go for no deal. And if they go for no deal, I can tell you this, we don't have much of a future either. And then Jeremy Hunt, my opposite number. Now, I don't know how many of you have met Johannes, who's my assistant. Stand up, Johannes. Now, you may not know, but Johannes is a budding poet, and on the train on the way up, he wrote a poem about Jeremy Hunt. He said, there was once a man called Jeremy Hunt, but he was awful, to be terribly blunt. He had no issues nor qualms, selling dictators more arms. In fact, he was no more than a terrible person. I think he needs some work. I think he probably ought to stick to the day job. Anyway, so we got Jeremy Hunt, and then we got Sajid Javid. You studied Javid. What's he been talking about recently? He spent most of day 2 of his campaign complaining about how he didn't get invited to the palace for the state banquet. I mean, with Donald Trump, I mean, there's a man of the people, isn't there? Honestly. And then Michael Gove. Michael Gove, the Pablo Escobar of Westminster. I mean, he says he's tried cocaine on several occasions. I'm sorry, I mean, there comes a point when you can't say that you're trying it anymore. It's a bit like me saying I'm trying gin and tonics. And it's Dominic Raab, I mean, who cares about him? How about Rory Stewart? Rory Stewart, don't you want to give him a cuddle? Not just me, is it? I don't know. Is he the baby-faced assassin or the assassin-faced baby? I don't know. But either way, I hope they don't hurt him too much. That's all I can say. And then, of course, there's my old friend Boris. I mean, I've shadowed him for his entire time as Foreign Secretary. That was just short of 2 years, 2 long years, I can tell you. And it gave me a true opportunity to get a measure of the man, and I'll tell you this. He was, without doubt, the most incompetent, complacent minister I have ever faced. Yeah! This is a man with so many skeletons in his closet that the priests have declared it a sacred ground. I mean, this is the man on the verge of becoming our next Prime Minister. I mean, what an absolute horror show this is. The only thing that might save us from Boris, the only thing that every Tory candidate has been dreading, isn't the exposure of a sex scandal or a drug scandal, not even evidence of their incompetence in government. No, the worst thing imaginable for any of these candidates is an endorsement from Chris Grayling. The man responsible for Northern Rail timetable fiascos, the man who brought us ferries that didn't exist, the man who chose Boris as his favourite candidate. So, if you want to know anything about Boris, if people are asking you to give us a summary of Boris, then I think if you want to sum him up by his friends. His 2 biggest supporters, Chris Grayling and Donald Trump. But whoever the Tories elect, we will be demanding from day one that they call a general election, because they must allow the country to choose the next Prime Minister and the new government, not just 300 MPs and whoever might be left in the Tory membership. A Tory membership that gets more money from dead members than they do from live members. The Tories are terrified of another election, and they're terrified because of what happened last time. And we all remember the headlines, don't we, from last time? The right-wing media crowing, us being 20 points behind, them saying that we were finished as a party, them saying that the Tories were going to be the new party of the North, remember that? Just as they were going to be the new party in the Midlands and the new party in Wales, and that we'd be destroyed in the way that we have been in Scotland. Hubris. Hubris is one of my favourite words these days. Hubris. That's what they had. Because they didn't count on the popular appeal of our manifesto that came from our hearts. Right? They didn't count on what our party can do and what we can do under Jeremy's leadership and when we get a fair crack at the media. And even more than that, they didn't count on the strength and the resilience of the Labour Party and the determination of activists in this room. Our army of members across the country, the biggest active political party in Europe, because we know that when Labour backs are against the wall, we don't turn on each other and we don't give in. We unite, we stand up, and we fight. And by God did we fight in 2017. And that's why in this constituency we recorded the biggest number of votes and our highest percentage of the vote since 1997, all part of the biggest increase in the national vote since 1945. But next time, we've got to do better, right? We've got first to be clear with ourselves where the next election will be won and lost. Because if you look at all the seats that are going to decide the next election, the vast majority are not in London and they're not in the big cities, they're in the smaller cities, they're in the towns, they are the seats that we need to win. And that's where we need to focus. That's where we need to focus our campaigning and our resources, because that is where the battle will be won and lost, especially if we're up against a Brexit party or a no-deal Tory leader. So when it comes to campaigning in regions like this, I'll tell you a personal bugbear I've got. Because when the Tories didn't win the election in 2017 and went into a deal with the GUP, you will remember that Damien Green came into Parliament, he came into the House of Commons, and he stood there with a straight face and he said, this £1 billion bribe isn't this £1 billion deal isn't a bribe. It's about region. Now, I had to respond to him that day, and I thought, well, as Liz will tell you, you're not allowed to call someone a barefaced liar in Parliament, or not on the record at least. There are a few things I sometimes say under my breath, but I thought, okay, well, what do you do? So I'll take him at his word, and I will just say, right, okay, if that's your policy, then what about all the other towns and regions in Britain who desperately need the same help? You know, what about the North East? You know, who could do with the same amount of money in infrastructure and support? They could do with those same tax breaks for tourism, couldn't they? So why isn't the government supporting them? I didn't get an answer. So I wrote to Damien Green the next day, and basically what I said was, you didn't answer my question. Will you commit to receive representations from all the cities and the towns and the regions across the country, and will you commit to give them the same consideration that you gave to Northern Ireland? Well, guess what? I didn't get a response. Of course I didn't. But as you know, Damien Green was always much too busy fiddling around in his office to be able to answer. Think about it. But let's remember that episode when we're campaigning in Blaydon and throughout the North East. Let's remember that the Tory MPs from up here did not say a dicky bird in that debate about the needs of the North East. They were quite happy to see £1 billion go over the Irish Sea to support Northern Ireland and keep the Tories in government, but they didn't have a word to say about the same needs facing their own communities. So, when we draw up our next manifesto for the next election, what we need to do is the opposite. We need to show that our first priority are the needs of smaller cities, of towns and regions, and the policies that we will make to make a real difference to those communities. And it can't be a couple of clever boys locked in an office in London drawing up those policies. It needs to be all of you in this room. It needs to be Liz. And all of you need to be banging the door down in Jeremy's office and saying, here are the policies, here is the way we can make a difference to our community, and here is how we can win. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, winning is something that we need to think a bit more about, in my view. You know, because this isn't like our kids playing football in the school playground. It isn't the taking part that counts. It's not how well you play the game. Not when you're talking about politics. In politics, winning is all that matters. Because whoever you are in the Labour family, whether you're a Labour MP or a shadow minister, you're a Labour supporter or a union member, there's only one battle that we have to win. And that is the only battle that matters. And that is the simple choice. Do we have a Labour MP and a Labour government, or do we continue to leave it all to the Tories? And that is the only choice that has mattered for the last 100 years. And it is still the only choice that matters now. And I think that every single one of us who works for that goal every day, whether it's in the conversations that we have with our workmates and our neighbours and our friends, or the doors that we knock on and the leaflets that we hand out, or standing up in Parliament, taking on the Tories, we have to all look at ourselves in the mirror at the end of every day and say to ourselves, did I make it more likely today that people will vote Labour rather than Tory? Did I make it more likely today that our next MP will be Labour and not Tory? And did I make it more likely today that the people in my community and my country will be benefiting from Labour policies in the future rather than suffering under the Tories. And anyone in our movement, anyone who instead spends all their time turning inwards, fighting each other, abusing each other, or allowing themselves to be distracted, they are forgetting the fight, the only fight that really matters. They are forgetting who the real enemy is, and they are forgetting what the real goal should be. And that is to end this Tory government. And the reason we must do that is because we must end this Tory government. We must end their cuts to school funding, which have left every school in the country practically sending out begging letters to parents just to buy school books and pencils for their children. We have got to end the NHS funding crisis, which has left every hospital in the country having to cut essential operations just simply to deal with the patients coming in through A&E. We have to end the police cuts, which have left our streets unsafe and left our police powerless to respond to the rise in knife crime. We have got to end the austerity that has been imposed on our country for 9 years now, with working people paying the biggest price, even as our national debt has grown higher and higher. We have to end the terrible way that they have driven through policies like universal credit, with the misery and the debt and the homelessness that it has caused. And that's rising amongst the very poorest and the most marginal in our communities. We have to end the shambolic way that they're delivering Brexit, with every one of them more concerned about their own jobs than with the millions of jobs being put at risk in our country if we crash out without a deal. And friends, because we are an internationalist movement, we also must end the shameful way that this government has turned its back on human rights around the world, from Yemen to Donald Trump, instead of speaking out and speaking out, instead of silent and doing nothing. We must end that government. We must bring a Labour Party back into power. And that campaign starts now, it starts today, it starts when we decide to come together and to fight, and to stay united and to fight, and to take on the only enemy that counts, this terrible Tory government, and to achieve the only goal that matters, putting a Labour government back into power. And you know, when we do that, Liz will be walking through the government lobbies in order to save the NHS, to invest in schools, to build infrastructure in the regions that need it, to properly kickstart a green industrial revolution, and to make sure that our country is one of fairness and equality and opportunity. And just like Leah Manning before her, she'll be singing the red flag as she does it. So remember where we're going, remember the goal, remember the focus, and thank you so much for inviting me here tonight, and thank you so much for supporting the party and all the work that you do. Thank you.
Who are dealing with casework day in and day out. Thanks. There's a list of people here that I want to thank for making tonight happen. I want to thank the Gendarmerie, our sponsors for this evening. I don't know if you want to clap after every single one. I'll group them up, yeah. If you want to cheer because it's you, then go ahead and cheer. I want to thank the trade unions and Unison, the CWU, and the NIC for your constant support. Thank you so much. And we will be relying on your support in the future, and especially if there's a general election around the corner. Thompson Solicitors, thank you. Barrett Homes, Stevenson Moore. Keep Note. Oh, this is actually good right there, isn't it? Gainford Group. The Persian Superstore. Nadal Hotras. And we've got an auction list. I'm not going to read out the auctions. I want to thank John Anderson, who is our resident auctioneer. We'll be getting you to part with your money a little bit later on, but there's been the prize, the donations for the auction have been donated by Liz West MP, Mohammed Karim from the Gainford Group, Michael Bonser, Managing Director of Rosewood, Dave Anderson and the Friends of Durham Miners Gala, David and Brenda Cleland, Imtiaz Ali Shah, and Businessmen. So hopefully we can raise an awful lot of money from the auction as well. And finally, I want to thank the Marriott staff who are looking after us tonight. Thank you so much for that. And to Four Park for our entertainment tonight as well. I just want to point out, in terms of the fundraising, you'll all see that there is a little envelope on the table there. On the table. That is for a prize. Kim has been selected as the Labour Party candidate for this election. Kim's a Newcastle councillor, and I'm sure she's very capable of representing the people of this region to the police, and very capable of standing up to this government to let them know and to remind them that if you want to reduce crime and you want an effective police force, then it has to be adequately funded. Kim's already started the campaign, and we in Blaydon will be receiving loads and loads of leaflets and letters to deliver. So I'm calling on you all again to get out there and deliver the leaflets before you enjoy the summer, because it's only 34 days long the campaign. 34 days.
How much I enjoyed Emily's speech and purpose. I've been to quite a few of these over the years, and I thought her speech was excellent. I thought it was humorous, a lot of very valid points as well. But it was excellent. And can I say that I've been to the last 3-4 of these, Liz, is it? 5, is it 5? And I can honestly say this is probably the richest audience I've ever seen. I'm not trying to suggest anything whatsoever. I'm just saying that you all look very wealthy and got deep. Well, I was going to say deep pockets, but I don't think you have, because I think your money's all right at the top of your pocket, so you'll be able to dig deep and get a few bob spent. Unlike last year's audience, they weren't great. You haven't got a lot to live up to, so you know, anything extra was on. They were only prepared to spend it.
Your name